Day 10 of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, 64-kilometer-long Russian military convoy is now moving towards the capital city of Ukraine, viewers. With each passing hour, the attacks continued over most parts of the city. Russia shelled a village in the suburbs of Kyiv, killing at least 5 people. A school in Zhytomyr was also hit by a Russian rocket on Friday, according to Ukraine's President Zelenskyy. The mayor of Mariupol claimed that the port city has been blockaded by Russian forces. The mayor earlier raised an SOS saying city has no water, no electricity and is running out of food. According to Zelenskyy government, 47 people were killed in Russian airstrikes that took place in residential areas in Chernihiv city of Ukraine. Zelenskyy has also condemned NATO's decision to reject Ukraine's call for declaring its skies a no-fly zone. Taking this straight across to my colleague Gaurav Sawant, who is in the middle of the war zone, risking his own life and bringing you up to speed with the very latest developments at the moment. Gaurav, what is the situation right now? Tell us your exact location and what is going on at the moment.
Chetty, it is extremely tense here in Kyiv. It's still not dawn. We are still indoors. There's curfew and martial law in place. So until 8 a.m., you cannot get out of your locations. There are shoot at sight orders because just now there is information that there are Russian saboteurs, commandos, special forces who've infiltrated inside Kyiv. And that's why there were reports of some gunfire and exchange of fire at suspicious movement. Any suspicious movement, now the security forces and the militia, they open fire immediately because the suspicion is while the Russian army attacks from the front, there are elements who will attack the checkpoints and security forces from behind, weakening the defenses of Kyiv. That's point one. Point two, President Zelenskyy late last night released some images saying that there was an attack made on him. There was an attempt to assassinate him, and this was a twofold attack. The government claimed that a team of assassins was sent in, but they were neutralized by the security forces here. They also say that pieces of a missile were found at his official residence, at his dacha, a missile that was sent in from Russia but neutralized by the missile defense system here. And in fact, President Zelenskyy jokingly said, releasing those images of missile pieces, the debris, saying, "You missed me." And now he's going to address the US Senate. He's already addressed European countries. President Zelenskyy is extremely unhappy with Europe for not standing by or not defending Ukraine's war against Russia. He's saying it's not just about Ukraine. It's Ukraine today. It would be all of Europe tomorrow. They're looking for a no-fly zone. They're looking for anti-tank guided missiles, surface-to-air missiles. They're also looking for international fighters, volunteers and mercenaries to stand with them and fight alongside them as this Russian war comes extremely close to the capital Kyiv. The Russians are also closing in on multiple other cities, including on Mykolaiv, which is where they have where they have the second largest nuclear plant. Remember, Zaporozhye now is in control of the Russians, which is where the 6 nuclear reactors are, the biggest here in Europe and in Ukraine. They're now closing in on the second, Chernobyl already with Russia. So it's almost as if to a plan, Chetty, that the Russians are moving forward and Kyiv now bracing for that siege.
No, I'm coming back to Kyiv, Gaurav, right now. You are right there, but you just mentioned about that entire attack on Zaporozhye nuclear power plant as well. And now Zelenskyy has accused Russia of nuclear terror. What are you picking up at the moment as far as this accusation of further nuclear terror is concerned, Gaurav?
So in Kyiv, in Ukraine, it is being said that Russia wants to take over all the nuclear power plants in an attempt to threaten this country, in an attempt to starve this country of energy. And they are moving according to a plan. That is why, well, yesterday the International Atomic Energy Agency was very clear that there is no increase in radiation. The 6 nuclear power plants are safe. The nuclear regulator here, even in Ukraine, said exactly the same. But you know the details of what's happening in Mariupol. Mariupol in the east, which is the Donbass region where India Today was reporting from earlier this week. In that entire Mariupol region, the assault has been so intense, whether it's missiles, rockets, artillery, or now even armor moving into the tanks and armored personal carriers. They're moving into that area, that the mayor of Mariupol had to issue a desperate prayer for being rescued. He's saying that there are so many people who are trapped in basement of their houses and in underground because there is no food. There is no water, there is no electricity, and those who require medicines are unable to even go to the nearest chemist shop. And there is a desperate prayer for the creation of a humanitarian corridor so that those who want to leave the conflict zone and haven't been able to do so far may be able to leave. There are reports of gunfire coming in even from Kyiv, but because of this curfew, nobody can go out and verify. But desperation virtually all over now.
You know, Gaurav, you just mentioned about Mariupol as well, and the mayor claimed that the port city had been completely blockaded by Russian forces too. He also raised an SOS saying the city has no water, it has no electricity, it is running out of food, medical supplies like you just mentioned. What is the situation in Kyiv? Is it something very similar?
Not that desperate just as yet. You saw a report from Ground Zero. During the day, we were able to travel to several localities. That's no longer possible in Mariupol. I was able to drive across Kyiv yesterday, and this is a huge city. While there were multiple checkpoints, we noticed that only a few petrol pumps were working. Majority of the petrol pumps that are working are saying our fuel is now limited only for government vehicles or military vehicles because they require all the fuel. Incoming fuel is a problem. Food supplies, resources, all of that no longer coming into the city. So this city is surviving with what it already has. The Black Sea coast has almost been cut off, and that is a major problem for entire Ukraine. What we are also being told at this point of time is in his address, President Zelenskyy wants to appeal to the United States to impress upon Russia to at least permit a humanitarian corridor for people. Remember that humanitarian corridor after 2 rounds of talks that were agreed to between Ukraine and Russia for Mariupol and for Sumy, for Indian students and other civilians who are trapped, that hasn't really completely worked out on ground. It has worked out in some places. It's not worked out in some other places. There is still an attempt. So Russia is saying they've got some 130 buses still on standby near Kharkiv, and they're hoping that they will be able to retrieve those trapped students. So this humanitarian corridor remains a big issue so that not only can trapped people, including Indian students and other students, come out of these strife-torn areas, but food, medical supplies, bandages, or antibiotics, all of that are required in hospital in these areas can go in. And all of this, Chaiti, under the supervision of the International Red Cross Society. That is the attempt that the Red Cross Committee should be able to take all of these essential supplies and monitor this humanitarian corridor. Again, a task that's easier said than done on ground.
So evidently it looks like the 2 rounds of talks that have taken place have not yielded much result. There is a talk of a 3rd round of talks with Russian officials by Ukraine about around this weekend. What are you picking up on that front, Gaurav?
Well, hopes are pinned that this 3rd round of talks may prevent this ultimate disaster that God forbid may just happen in this area, which is the targeting of Kyiv, the way Kharkiv was targeted, the way Kherson was targeted, the way Odessa was targeted, or worse. And that is the apprehension across this area that God forbid. Kyiv is an ancient city. This has churches that go back to the 10th century. And there is apprehension, like old buildings, historic buildings were targeted in other cities. The same may happen here. And this used to be a huge bustling city, now virtually a ghost town. But not everyone has been able to leave. And not everyone is a fighter. So there will be those civilians who've been killed. And Ukraine has once again reached out to the United Nations Human Rights Council also, saying civilians, non-combatants, hospitals are not being spared, schools are not being spared. They are saying that innocent people are being targeted. Russia, on the other hand, is saying that why should, and that's the Russian claim, why should air defense systems or surface-to-air missiles or pockets of resistance be in villages or some of these so-called non-combatant areas. They are saying they're only taking down legitimate military targets, and in war both sides have claims and counterclaims. We are reporting both sides of the story here on India Today. The situation does remain extremely grim, extremely precarious. All eyes on the third round. If there is some forward movement from either side, there is no give either from Ukraine or from Russia, and that is why this war is now in its 10th day. But even on the 10th day, Russia not in control either of Kyiv or in complete control of Kharkiv. It is in control of some of the major other cities and centers, but not Kyiv or Kharkiv.
Are the Russian forces even trying to break resistance in the nearby towns of Kyiv at the moment, Gaurav? And what about the Indians who are in Kyiv at the moment?
Yes, Russians are systematically targeting vital assets, vital points. India Today was reporting from one such location yesterday where a Russian missile strike caused massive damage. They're trying to break resistance, but the morale of the people here, the quiet determination, that steely determination is not only seen in their eyes, it's also seen in their actions. They haven't abandoned their posts. I haven't seen a single post, and we travel across the city almost every day. Not many people are able to move out of a locality because there are no taxis available, there are no vehicles available. But we have that advantage, and we're taking full use, making full use of that situation that we can travel. We are also trying to get hold of a martial law pass, but the situation does remain that people have that steely resolve to defend their city against a Russian attack. And this is not just combatants, but even non-combatants are defending their localities, their towns and their cities. But the attack is coming in. The Russian squeeze on Kyiv is becoming tighter virtually from every side. However, I mean, there was a report that quoted a Pentagon official saying that 500 missiles have been fired in these past 10 days. 500 missiles being fired is virtually 24 to 2 dozen plus every day. There is intensification of operations, but in various parts of this country, but Kyiv continues to hold on. Cheti.
And now to the question of President Zelenskyy. Has he left for Poland? Is he in Ukraine? And can we confirm the multiple allegations of assassination attempts on President Zelenskyy, Gaurav?
So President Zelenskyy met some people yesterday, and those people are saying that yes, he continues to remain here in the national capital in Kyiv. Has he moved out in the last several hours or overnight? We still do not know. But he is to address the US Senate today. He's addressed European nations yesterday, and he says he will continue to fight. He says he's not giving up without a fight. He, of course, is hitting out at European nations for not standing by Ukraine, because he says that if Russia successfully brings down Ukraine today, the fact that Russia brought down Georgia in 2008, Crimea in 2014, virtually unchallenged both times, if it brings down Ukraine today, which is 2022, it will be the rest of Europe in the years ahead. Of course, as a countermeasure, you have the US President Joe Biden saying that US will protect all NATO countries. The entire might of the 30 NATO countries will come together and come down hard on anyone attacking NATO members. But remember, Ukraine is not a NATO member. This entire fight is because Russia said we will not let Ukraine become a NATO member and have the North Atlantic Treaty Organization threat right in our backyard. So this is where President Zelenskyy too perhaps is feeling the squeeze. He's feeling the pressure that was he led up the garden path? Was he made to take on Russia, promised assistance, and has that assistance actually not fructified on ground? Perhaps more than lip sympathy, lip service, and a few artillery pieces or surface-to-air missiles, anti-tank guided missiles, clearly not enough to take on the might of the Russian army.
You know, there's a report, Gaurav, that US is warning of high civilian casualties in Ukraine and that Russia is ready to bombard cities into submission. At this point of time, what is your sense as you stand there in the national capital, Kyiv?
The fear is that this could become another Aleppo. The fear is this could be bombarded and there could be indiscriminate targeting of localities. The building, we were in a high-rise building. We were first in a building, staying on the 17th floor, and we were asked to vacate. We were told that that building could be targeted, and people vacated high-rise buildings, or they're preferring to spend 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours in a basement or a bomb shelter or even a parking lot of a multi-storied building than spend and it's -2 degrees. Even as you and I speak right now, Chaiti, it's -2 degrees here in Kyiv. So in that icy cold with icy cold winds, you know, they almost it's almost as if they'll take away your ear. It's so cold here. In that icy cold wind, people are living in basements. We then shifted into another building, which is where we had a room on the 5th floor. Again, while we had a room on the 5th floor, till about 2:33 at night, or maybe there were times till about 4 in the morning, we would be in the basement or right next to the basement. That should you hear the air raid siren, you go down in the basement because there is shortage of oxygen in the basement.
Yeah.
So you would come back to the ground floor, sit around there. In case there's panic, you'll rush down again. And the same thing is happening even now. The apprehension is there could be an attack anytime. You just brace for that imminent attack.
You know, Gaurav, I can only sit here and imagine what you, Pawan, and our entire team of India today also must be going through while reporting this particular war, and rather very brave of you, and all prayers for your safety as well. As far as the Indians who are stuck in Kyiv right now are concerned, have there been any attempts made for their safe evacuation, any kind of passage for safe evacuation from Kyiv at the moment?
The prayer is, so Kyiv is not that much of an issue, but Kharkiv and Sumy and pockets of Odessa, they remain an issue. So Government of India has said that about 20,000 people had registered with them. Most of those people are already out of this country, but they still remain, if those numbers are accurate, because some haven't registered, we are told about 1,000 in Kharkiv, maybe a little more than 1,000 in Kharkiv, and anything between 400 to 700, maybe a little more or less in Sumy. They still remain trapped in basements and in their hostels and in their locations. Some are also staying with local families here because they haven't been able to get out. Now, if this humanitarian corridor is successful and ICRC is able to say that yes, there is a humanitarian corridor between Kharkiv and the Russian border at Belgorod, that's only 40 kilometers or 30 kilometers in some instances. So people can, from Kharkiv, instead of coming 7 hours to Kyiv, they can just go 40 kilometers across the border and they'll be safe in Belgorod. They'll be in Russian territory. They can go to the nearest airport and arrangements can be made to fly them back to India. Similarly, those who are in Sumy is witnessing intense fighting. While the Russians insist that they're targeting only military areas, but there have been reports that a hospital, or they were shelling near a hospital, a military hospital, they were shelling near a civilian area. There has been loss of life in several civilian localities. So there also children are trapped in and the hope is that if this humanitarian corridor works out, then at least today, and this is the 10th day of intense operations, then at least today they would be able to be retrieved from Sumy and from Kharkiv. So ballpark maybe between 1,800 or 1,700 to 2,000 people, Indians, still need to be rescued.
That's right. Gaurav, continue to be with us. We're compelled to take a very short commercial break, but Gaurav Sawant right there reporting from the war zone. We are going back to him in just about a bit for all the latest updates, slipping into a very short commercial break here on India Today.